Hello and welcome to GM Talks. Today we're gonna look at how grandmasters think. What is the thought process when choosing a move, a plan, calculating variations, and so on. And we're going to use the all moves explained concept we've developed here at GM Talks. So let's delve into a great Grandmaster game. It's a long maneuvering struggle leading up to a ending that's better for one of the players, and how to conduct your play in this kind of game. So let's jump into it. It's Praggnanandhaa versus David Navara. Prag is one of the most promising Indian youngsters. I have a slight feeling that he might actually be better than Gugus, even though Gugus at the moment is leading. Prag is above 2700 now. He's playing David Navara, the nice, very strong grandmaster from Czechia. I played against him a few times and I won one of my best games, so I like him. He's also a very kind person. He's very, very good with the initiative and not so good at defending, and we're gonna see that. He does not really like to defend. Okay, let's get into it. So we try to explain the thought process behind more or less all of the moves. E4, E5, this is the opening, gaining influence in the center, attacking the pawn and developing a knight. Makes a lot of sense. Developing a knight and defending a pawn makes a lot of sense, and so on. And white plays the Italian game, developing the bishop to an active position and attacking f7 here. And black also develops his bishop and get ready to castle, and so on, and fighting for this square. And d3, normally white would go c3 here with the idea to go d4, and after knight f6 the main move here is not d4, because it has been more or less analyzed out to a draw, or not much going on there. So white usually go d3 here. So going d3 first actually does not mean much. It's called the gioco piano, like quiet Italian play or something like that. But Prag actually has another idea, because here he goes a4. Now, what is the behind this idea? This is one thing. It protects the bishop on c4. By the way, the reason why there are all these arrows is because I'm doing a rerun of this video, because it somehow disappeared. Very annoying. So this is the second take, which we usually don't do here at GM Talks. Anyway, the idea here is that white might go something like, for instance, after something like this, white is already threatening b4, bishop b6, a5, trapping the bishop, typical trap. Another thing is a4 gains space on the queen side. White often follow up with a5 at some point, and it makes sure this guy here, which is one of the good pieces for white, is not exchanged by the knight, because now it has a place to go, so it has more room. So a4 makes sense, and it's also when white realized maybe we don't have to move the bishop. Usually white will shuffle the bishop down here, but maybe we don't have to move the bishop. Maybe we can just keep it here, because we play a4, so sort of both gaining space on the queen's side and preserving the bishop. Black plays h6, makes a lot of sense, prevents the pin here, and it's a typical move. Sometimes black will switch and go on with the attack with d5. Castle, white is not afraid of that. d6, and typical position here, if we go c3, you might say that black is probably happy he has not played a6. He would probably play a5 here, because this constellation seems to be slightly problematic for white, and I have the feeling that white should only go a4 when black goes a6. But it's my sense of it. I'm not sure it's correct. Bcb3 is apparently Prag's idea. This knight is still very flexible. It can go here, it can go here, and it can go here. So and white still has the option of playing c3. Black's main problem in this kind of position is this knight here on c6. I'll make it green, which is blocking the pawn on c7. So and it has to sort of keep the center together. At the same time, it cannot really get active, and you would like to use the c pawn for fighting for the center, and you cannot do it when the knight is blocking it. So this is a typical problem for black in Italian game and in the Spanish game, that this knight is blocking the c pawn is often the only thing that's wrong with black's position. Take makes sense. You could let white take on c5 and take back. It's possible. It does worsen your pawn structure a little bit, but it might not be a big deal. But taking makes sense, and black castle. White's gotten an open f file and a strong bishop here. But he's also gotten a double pawn. It's a double central pawn, which could be handy, but it can also, double pawns can always be a little bit unflexible. So it's not like it's a super bargain for white, but it does open up for some attacking moves. You like your queen here, and this guy is the target here. If you can. So black has to be a little bit careful, and he white starts by taking away the d4 square, and black simply says, okay, I'm also gonna accept the double pawn to relieve all pressure in the a2 f7 diagonal. White takes. And so we have more or less symmetrical position. The only problem for black is still this knight is here. For instance, if it was here, then black would be happy, I think. And we see that white is not going to put his knight on c3. And here, this knight, it just blocks this knight's possibility. And it opens up for the queen to go here where it can attack. So we see that white is more flexible. d5 makes sense for black. Saying okay, and if white takes here, then black is fine here because he has like more space in the center and reasonable chances for instance giving black white a weak pawn here. So taking makes no sense, and here black could take here. I think I would recommend it. White probably would not like this. Is my feeling that this is really annoying. So instead he would probably take back with a knight, and something like this looks rather equal. The white's knight here is clearly better than black's knight here because it's attacking, it's flexible, and this pawn is blocking the knight, but it's not really and if for instance you take here, this is not clear that white has anything in this kind of position, even though you have to be a little bit careful that this might come and the knight can win the pawn here. Might actually be a problem actually. Maybe you have to play a5 to stop it, and then accept that you're slightly worse here, or maybe you're much worse actually. I don't know. It's not so easy for white. The thing is, white has more options with the knight. It can go here. The knight can't really move because you have to keep an eye on that one, and it's so far away from attacking the pawn here that it will never sort of get into active mode. Okay, so that's. But of course, Navara is not the kind of guy who wants to have this situation where he has to defend passively, so he will definitely not play this move. he plays a5, stopping all stuff with b4 b5, sort of making this safer, and also stopping a5, gaining more space on the queen side. And white goes to b3 with the queen. This is the option he had, putting pressure on black's weak spots. Black plays queen d6, a typical way of defending the pawn. It cannot be taken now due to this trapping the queen. You see there the queen has no squares, but white has an option here. He can take on d5, which is a little bit annoying for black now, because due to the increased pressure here. Knight takes looks awful. White can just play rook here and will have two nice. Something like this looks really bad. You can play knight c4, but you can also play something like knight rook c1 and decide where to go. And it looks horrible for black, this kind of position. So black takes with the queen. The problem is he would like to take with the pawn, but after e4 he will get a weak pawn, and white has some pressure here. This might not be a disaster, but it is annoying. So instead he takes with the queen, more or less forcing white to exchange. This one is hanging, this one is threatening, destroying white's structure. So white will have to do something about that. For instance, if black is allowed to play this and e4, he will be happy. So white plays e4 and saying, okay, we can give this one or this one for this one. It makes sense, I think. I think he would probably take this one actually, and then go to b5 afterwards. Queen takes, and we have this situation. So white is, of course, better here because black has these two pawns. He also got the problem with the knight that he has not solved. It's still very unflexible on c6. The thing is, when beginners get these kind of position, this knight is not a big problem for long, because one of them will usually mess up and not see that it can be redeployed, and then this problem solved. But when very, very strong players like Praggnanandhaa and Navara get these kind of position, a slightly misplaced piece is a big problem, because they will make sure it stays misplaced. This is a very important thing in Grandmasters thinking. You got a bad piece, I'm gonna make sure you keep that bad piece, and then make you suffer for it. So white is slightly better here. It's not a big deal, but these pawns are unflexible and double. Of course, no rooks can attack them, so this helps. b6 takes away the c5 square, which makes sense. Also relieves the rook from defending a5, so it can go somewhere else or here. And at some point, white is hoping to move the knight. King f2. So white is getting the king in. Of course, it makes a lot of sense to have it centralized on e3 and giving some options. He's defending here, and then he will put pressure on e5, and then he needs a second weakness. We know this is the Alekhine rule, so he will probably try to push on the king side. This knight would be nice on this square. Anyway, so this is and black goes rook to an open file, attacking the pawn. White defends with the rook. Rook f7, making the rooks more flexible. They can now both be here and here, depending on what is needed. Also, the f7 square is not really a good square for any of the pieces at the moment, but it might. This square might be good at some point to go to d7 to cover. Black still have some problems with this one. King e3, centralized king, defending here. Sometimes will be able to push here, and so on. White has a slight but clear advantage. Knight h5. Like we said, Navara is an active player, and he sees some square here. that the knight can use, and they are hoping to attack something, for instance, from the, and here white's move, and it's hard to explain, but it's very obvious what white should play here. And when you see the move, you instantly feel that it's correct. It's sort of a prophylactic move. Play rook f2, like black did with this move. White is maybe preparing rook d2, maybe preparing rook f1. He's protecting this pawn from the beginning and making the rooks more flexible. It makes it just when you see the move, you just instantly feel, yeah, that's the right move. That's correct. That must be fine. Black goes to f4, and there are no. You don't really want to mess it up here with losing this one and so on. So, but white, of course, would not like to have this knight sitting here for a long time. So, but there's a problem here. Then this pawn is hanging. So you need to do something first. Very typical h4, preparing d3, and black is getting pushed back. Ideally, white would like to have the knight pushed to this square, because then the pawn here would dominate it, like we see this one is dominating this guy here. King f8, g3, and of course black does not play this. Now black is actually does have a positional threat here, and what is that? That is to play knight f6, taking control over this square, and this is really where it would hit. So this is something white really would not like. So he needs to take. So rook g1. And what's the point of that? That is, if black goes here, you of course go g4. You're also ready to push black away and taking more space, and maybe at some point even start an attack on the king here. Something like this is of course met by this move, opening the g file and getting this square for all the pieces. King e7. And white decides that it's better to have the rooks off. But black is probably preparing rook f8, trying to put pressure on the f file. So white exchange the rook. Black's knight is still a problem, but it seems black is defending here pretty well. Again, knight f6 is always met by g4. Knight b8. Black finally solves the problem with the knight and get it redeployed. So, and we see now why this had to defend this one. So it hopes to spring into action at some point to become active. But of course, this is still the big thing in the position. Black cannot really do much, and we see that g4 is coming here, of course. And h5, I was a little bit surprised by h5, but it makes sense. White takes this one, and to have the knight attacking here would be nice, because it both will attack here, but it would also take away squares in the f file, so this one would put more pressure on black. Knight d6. And this is a nice maneuver by Navara. He is ready to put the knight here, where it both cover this one is his important breakthrough square, and it defends this one, and it defends the f file and makes the other knight more flexible. So this is all nice. White's knight cannot do any more right now, and also this knight is not going here anytime soon. Rook g8. Like we said, Navara is not a great not the best defender, and he likes to be active. So he's preparing g6 to get some counterplay. He's always looking for counterplay. White plays knight h4, and Praggnanandhaa likes to stop counterplay, and he's also preparing knight g6 check, which would be like if black was to do something like this, then he would really be pushed back. Here, black cannot really move anything, and white is probably winning here. This position looks really bad. He might even get into zugzwang because the rook, the king can move back and forth, but then it has to cover here, and I think black will get into zugzwang here. So black keeps the knight out. Makes a lot of sense. Knight goes back, and this is a typical. This Petrosian always did this when better. He threatened repetition of moves, or pretended he might, just to show who's the boss. Rook F1. So, but white was not in going to make the draw anyway. G5, and it looks a bit tempting to not take, just to keep black in passive. Problem is, after something like this and here, black more or less has a fortress. It will be very, very difficult for white to continue. If he goes with something like this, then the rook will be active here, attacking this pawn. And if you go something like this, then black's weaknesses disappear. It might still be slightly better for white, but it will be very difficult to win. So white takes and goes back, and black's weakness here remain, but and he might be trading this, but he's also protecting this from the beginning, and king f6 and knight f7, and this position here, I think it's probably drawn. It looks optically very much better for white, but it's not much, and it will be very difficult to win this kind of position. This knight here is absolutely optimally played, protecting all the important squares, and shielding the king. Black still has the weaknesses, and I'm sure that they could do something like this, right? That they could move forward, and I don't know if it goes here or here, probably here. This is, white can still keep trying, but I think it is a draw, and white will of course torture black for a long time, but it's not. I don't see how he really can make serious progress. Instead, Navara, he messed up. He played knight g5, and this is he's a little bit impatient. It's just, and white's got but maybe he also didn't see white's very nice combo here. He took on e5 and rook here, and on this move we have rook takes knight takes e5, and on this move we have knight d2, and so we will have a rook ending, which is better for white. He's a pawn up, but, and this is probably a mistake. I think black should take here. This h pawn is very dangerous, but white is better, but he has to be careful. I would probably lose this with white in blitz, but I think the computer says it's better for white. It is messy. I think something like, if you take here, maybe some like I don't know, this, and this is probably winning for white, because these pawns will be too strong. Maybe black should try to at some point to defend this one, but I'm not sure it's working. But it could be been pretty unclear, this position. Instead, black played this move, which is not right. And here, I'm sure he has to defend this one. It looks like the h pawn is just running, but it isn't, and it's not fast enough. So here, black has to defend the pawn. I don't know if rook e8 or rook g6 or something. This is what you would do usually. Just say, oh, it's running, and my king is covered, and I just need to go here. But the problem is you don't have time. White's pawns are also coming, and they will overwhelm the rook, and the position is basically lost here. The pawn is coming very fast, and so something like this. No, if you play this first, you can play this first. Like this, and the pawns are simply winning. The king and 2 pawns are winning, and black will just, white is ready now. He's ready to take and play e6, and the pawn will queen. So this black tried some desperate, but it's not working. Staying active, of course, and these 2 pawns are way stronger than this pawn here. And when you cover 1 pawn, the other one runs. Playing something like this does not help. White just plays here, and king d5, and this one decides. So c6, king d5, attacking the rook. That is typical. It both covers the pawn and the pawn. But again, we have the other pawn running, and you will threaten to take a queen. Rook e1, ready for this one. Unfortunately, this one both take away this pawn and threaten c7, because this check is intercepted by rook c3. So this was a great game by Praggnanandhaa, who went on to eliminate Navara after a draw in the second game. And I hope you like this video, and remember to share, and remember to sign up for the email, and you remember to like and tell all your friends about it. And I would like to hear your comments. This was GM Talks. Thank you.